How do you picture Bethlehem? Just think about that for a minute. How do we picture Bethlehem? This is how one person did. O little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie. Above thy deep and dreamless sleep, the silent stars go by. And total chaos filled the streets with the census that was near. Oh, you thought I was going to rhyme that one, sorry. It was a census. It was total and absolute chaos. Imagine living in a little quaint little town. And then all of a sudden you realize that there are thousands upon thousands of people coming to town. Because they were told they had to come to town. This wasn't this will be a fun family vacation. This is going to be total chaos. But if you're like me, you don't think of Bethlehem that way. I'll be honest with you, I didn't. Then I started reading the book and I says, I better hurry up and change my impression of Bethlehem. Because it was so crazy, so crowded. It was so crowded that every hotel in the room or in the city was filled. And they had to put this young couple who had just traveled for the census, and they said, "We don't have any room. We got a barn out back. Would that work?" How do we picture Bethlehem? I'm hoping that in the next few weeks you're going to picture Bethlehem a little bit different. Now, how do we picture Bedlam? Did any of you get up early Friday morning and go shopping? You've all learned better. What is Bedlam is when you go to Best Buy at 5 in the morning and the line wraps halfway around the store and they've only got 2 iPads for sale for $100. And for some reason you think that even though you're number 183 in line, you're going to get it. Oh, my friends, Bedlam. Sometime in the next 4 weeks, try to find a parking spot at the mall. Bedlam. The only way I'm able to find my truck in the mall is I reach in and I hit the horn button. Where the heck did I park that? Oh, there it is. Yep. You know what I'm saying, right? This is crazy. This is an absolutely nutty time. Bedlam. It's just total chaos. So when somebody puts the word Bethlehem and Bedlam in the same sentence, as I was thinking a month ago, I thought, what do these two things have in common? Well, hopefully we're going to find out. James Moore's book, Finding Bethlehem in the Midst of Bedlam, does not refer to parking lots. It does not take a good hard look at long lines at the store. But it takes a look at the chaos that you feel here. It takes a look at the chaos and the confusion that I don't get it. How could my life be at peace? You can talk to anyone after the Christmas season gets rolling, and you can ask them, say, what do you want more than I want 5 minutes alone. Remember a few years ago, the writer for the Sioux City Journal called me and said they were doing an article on how clergy see the Christmas season. And I said, Bedlam, chaos, extra services, trying to be creative with the same story that everybody could get up and recite. And I'm going to try to find something. He said, well, how do you do it? I said, one of the things that I really like doing is sitting at home, turn out all the lights, meaning they'll say, then fall asleep. Turn out all the lights, except the lights on the Christmas tree. And just sit there and look. Peace. That's what I want. That's what I need to spend just a little bit of time doing. Every time Christmas rolls around, I've got to take a little bit of time. And if for some reason I can't do it at home, I come over here at night and I turn on the Christmas lights. And I just sit. Sounds good. During the course of the series, we're going to show video clips from James Moore's book. And so I'm going to start with one of them right now for this series. If we can get it to work correctly. Can we have somebody hit the lights in the back, please?
I just have to prepare myself for that every holiday, but yes, it's pie-making chaos every single season.
Every Christmas has its own brand of confusion and chaos, like Selena and her pie factory. But the good news is, Bethlehem always happens in the midst of Bedlam. Christmas time always comes in the midst of confusion. Even on the night Jesus was born, he was surrounded by chaos. Crowded inns, people in the streets, Roman soldiers marching around, and a census going on to boot. And I'm sure it looked more like Bedlam than the little town of Bethlehem we usually think of. But right in the middle of it, Jesus was born. There were swaddling clothes, the manger, the angels, and the shepherds. It's possible today, too, to find the real spirit of Christmas amid life's noise and confusion. Bethlehem always happens in the midst of Bedlam. There are even shepherds.
Christians in the world know about shepherds and their sheep.
The shepherds were among the first to see the baby Jesus.
When the angels returned to heaven, the shepherds said to each other, "Let's go right now to Bethlehem and see what's happened. Let's confirm what the Lord has revealed to us." They went quickly and found Mary and Joseph and the baby lying in the manger.
In Southwest Texas, Glenn Fisher is a first-generation sheep rancher, but his wife's family has been in the business since the 1880s. It's a solitary life.
I don't see any other people some days at all. My men are working one place and I'm working another, or checking somewhere, and the cows and the sheep, they don't talk back to me.
Glenn tends his flock with a pickup truck and metal pens, but he has the same dedication to the animals that scripture writers described.
14, 16, 18, one's missing. We'll go back and maybe spend as much time looking for one as we did for 100.
Glenn goes home each day, but some shepherds still live much as they did in biblical times.
Up in the mountains in the summertime, and one man will take care of 1,000 sheep. with some dogs and horses. And he doesn't see anybody probably but once a week when his boss brings him food and salt for the sheep.
At the first Christmas, the shepherds were alone in the fields when angels appeared to them. Glenn can imagine the sea of stars they saw.
Growing up, we had a star on top of the Christmas tree with a light in it. We had one ourselves, and then it wrecked, and my wife said, well, we don't need it or something. And I said, yes, we do. That's something that's important to me, to have a star.
Was there a star the night Jesus was born?
Shepherding is important to Glenn's church family, too. First United Methodist of Sonora was built in the 1920s, funded in part by the donation of 50 sheep from the community. December is one of the busiest months on Glenn's farm.
This time of year, when we're getting new babies at the ranch, I like to watch them. They like to run and play, and it's the most satisfying part about a ranch, and that happens once a year is all.
A time of year called Advent, when all await the gift of new life.
The shepherds returned home, glorifying and praising God for all they had heard and seen. Everything happened just as they had been told.
Even this modern shepherd has his own kind of busyness during Advent, as he welcomes new lambs to his ranch every year in December. But he finds the meaning of Christmas through the star on the top of his tree. It's an important Christmas symbol, and it reminds him of the night sky the shepherds outside Bethlehem must have seen when the angel appeared to them. It's this shepherd's way of discovering the spirit of Christmas, even during the busy time on his ranch. So how about you? Where do you see Bedlam around Christmas time? And how can you find Bethlehem in the midst of Bedlam this year?
This is kind of nice. Put all of us to sleep. Huh? Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14. The Lord himself will choose the sign. Look, a virgin will conceive a child, and she will give birth to a son, and will call his name Emmanuel. God is with us. God is with us. One of the exercises in the book for the first chapter asked us to go back in and look at the definition and what it really means when it says God with us. And it invited us to look at some other names that we would assign to Jesus. The verse, the people who walk in darkness will see a great light, as a reminder of John the Baptist. And then in Isaiah chapter 9, for a child is born to us, a son is given to us, and the government will rest on his shoulders. And these will be his royal titles: Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. How do you define Jesus? Now, I'll tell you, as I was filling the blanks out for this, for the little questions in this book, man, I was just writing away. I felt like I was writing my own book. And I got to that page. It said, what names would you assign to Jesus? And I'm sitting there going, trying to figure it out. Crazy, I thought of the phrase that the youth nowadays use, BFF. Best friend forever. And I thought of some others. But I struggled with coming up with this massive list of names. And I thought, all right, I'm going to take this page and clip it and make sure that I go back to it time and time again during this month. Because one of my prayers is to God, just make yourself as real to me as you did to those shepherds. Make yourself as real to me as you did to Mary and Joseph. Make yourself as real to me as you did to everyone around who was in awe of a little baby. One of the stories that the writer puts is, and you may have seen it, the Peanuts cartoon. Actually, I've seen it on TV, and you've got Linus and Charlie Brown sitting there watching TV, and Snoopy is standing on top of the television. And Snoopy is standing there with his ears spread wide and up. Looks like the old rabbit ear antenna that some of us used to use on our televisions. And Linus looked at Charlie Brown and said, "Why is he up there?" And he says, "All I know is that he gives us a better picture." You know what? That's one thing I know about Jesus. Is that because Jesus came to earth and took on the form of a human being, that you and I get a better picture of what God is really like. Luke chapter 2, verse 10. We saw it in the slides or the video, and it basically, you know, they were terribly frightened, but the angel reassured them. What does it say? Do not be afraid. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm just kind of hanging around, watching my sheep on a beautiful, clear night. And all of a sudden the sky opens up and there's this choir of angels and there are, bright lights from above. Don't be afraid. Oh, yeah, right, that's going to happen. I'm in a mild state of hysteria. You heard the shepherd here talk, they may not see somebody for a whole week. And all of a sudden their beautiful sky is interrupted by angels. I know how they must have felt. They must have felt the Bedlam. They must have felt it because all of a sudden the very first thing that the angels say, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. But I'll tell you, man, we're just feeling it. I'm just feeling it right now, that total chaos. Don't be afraid. During the course of the Christmas season, I say that out loud. Don't be afraid. Those toys that the kids ask for, they are available for purchase somewhere. Do not be afraid. You sit there and go, well, that's a pretty lame story to tell when you're talking about the shepherds, but you've all done it. We've all done it. So, I wanted to understand. I get that the shepherds were just scared spitless. Here's some of the definitions, or here's some of the synonyms. Frightened, scared, terrified, fearful, petrified, scared witless, scared to death, terror-stricken, terror-struck, frightened out of one's wits, scared out of one's wits, shaking in one's shoes, shaking like a leaf. You get the idea they weren't really in their comfort zone? They weren't. They really were struggling. But they had the opportunity to hear the announcement firsthand from heaven and to be a part of that Christmas so long ago. I wonder how this is going to affect us. How do you and I move from Bedlam in our hearts to Bethlehem? How do we move from total chaos to that sleepy little town that we sing about? Or how do we move from being totally focused on everything else to a point where we are focused on Emmanuel? God is with us. Let's see, where's the book? That's skipping ahead on me too, isn't it? Jack Smith had been asked by his church to do one of the Christmas social concern projects. He was assigned the task of taking two boys from a low-income home on a Christmas Eve shopping spree. Timmy was age 9 and his younger brother age 7. Timmy and Billy were delighted when Jack came from the church to pick them up. They had been watching for him all morning and with great excitement because their dad was unemployed. And they knew this was all the Christmas that they would get this year. Jack gave each boy his allotted $4 and they started out together. Jack took the boys first to a toy store, but strangely, Timmy and Billy didn't seem interested. Jack made some suggestions, but their answer was, nah. Then they tried a hobby shop. Same results. A candy store. A sporting goods store. They even tried a clothing store, but with no luck. Timmy and Billy would whisper to each other, look at a brown piece of wrapping paper stuck in their pocket, but nothing struck their fancy. Finally, Jack asked, where would you boys like to go next? Their faces brightened. This was the moment they had been waiting for. Could we go to a shoe store, sir? Asked Timmy. We want to get a pair of shoes for our daddy so he can go to work. In the shoe store, the clerk asked the boys what they wanted. Out came the brown paper. We want a pair of work shoes to fit this foot, they said. Billy explained that the outline of their dad's foot, drawn with a crayon while their father was sound asleep in the chair. The clerk measured the outline of the foot and found some shoes that would fit. Will these do? He asked. The boys were delighted. Billy and Timmy, with big smiles, took the shoes into their hands eagerly. But then Timmy saw the price. Oh no, Billy. These shoes are $16.95, but we only have $8. The clerk, hearing the conversation and clearing his throat, said, well, that's the regular price, but you're in luck. It just so happens that those shoes are on sale for $5.98. With shoes happily in hand, Timmy and Billy then bought gifts for their mother and 2 little sisters. Not once did they think of themselves. The day after Christmas, Jack saw the boy's father out on the street looking for a job. He had his new shoes on his feet and gratitude in his eyes. When he came up to Jack, he said, I thank God for people like you who care. And Jack answered, thank God for your 2 sons. They taught me more about Christmas in one day than I had learned in a lifetime. How are we going to receive this word? Emmanuel. How do we get to understand what that means? I want you to just, when you think that the chaos cannot get any worse, take a deep breath and just repeat that word, Emmanuel. And with that little exercise, maybe you can think of some of the names that you would refer to Jesus. Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, or some of your own. And allow God's peace to replace the battle. Let's pray. Gracious God,